Australia probably isn't the first country you think of when discussing haunted places. But surprisingly, it has its fair share of locations that are said to be filled with paranormal activity. One of which is usually rated in the top 10 most haunted places in the world. From haunted houses with terrible and tragic backstories to cursed pools that have claimed the lives of many people, Australia is the focus for episode 4 of our most haunted locations around the world series. Before we get started though, don't forget to check out the new creepy limited edition Top 5's black hoodie over on the Top 5's website. It looks awesome, is incredibly comfy to wear, and is the perfect piece of clothing for sitting in the house these cold months and watching scary videos. Hit those lights, sit back, and enjoy. The Fremantle Arts Centre. The Fremantle Arts Centre in Western Australia was built in 1864 using convict labour, and was originally used as a lunatic asylum. It was notorious for overcrowding, abuse, and death. It's said to be one of the most haunted buildings in Western Australia, and it's hardly surprising when you hear about its gruesome past. The asylum was originally suitable for inmates thought to be criminally insane, but with increased demand, it was soon added to and accommodated patients from all walks of life who were considered to have social problems. These included prostitutes, the elderly, or just workers suffering from sunstroke. One of its biggest tragedies was in the middle of the 1900s when a local girl named Catherine Clifford was admitted when her behaviour had become erratic after she had gone missing and returned home several weeks later. Mrs. Clifford's husband visited her and found her unconscious with a black eye and scratches to her face. She had suffered the injuries after being attacked by the violent inmate she was sharing her room with. 3 days later, Mr. Clifford received the following telegram. "Your wife died this afternoon. Reply, RE burial." After the death, concerns were raised about the treatment of the patients, with suspicion that Mrs. Clifford had been beaten by staff. As a result, and another death not long after, the asylum was marked for closure. Although it was over 9 years before all the patients could be relocated, and the building was earmarked for demolition. However, it received a reprieve and was transformed into a women's home, then a military depot, a school, and then the arts centre that it is today. The building is reported to be the home of the many former patients' ghosts. One of the patients who hung herself using the stairwell is said to be responsible for the cold spots in that area. A lot of activity also takes place on the first floor, where doors open and close and objects move by themselves. One of the more eerie encounters is that of a woman whose daughter had been kidnapped. She was admitted to the asylum due to a deep depression, but unable to cope with the loss of her daughter, she committed suicide by throwing herself through the first floor window. It's said she can be seen around the building as she still searches in hope of finding her lost daughter. Monte Cristo Homestead in New South Wales. Now, I talked about this one in one of my very first videos, but I wanted to talk about it again because that video was only short and I can go more in depth in this video. Many say this is the most haunted homestead in Australia and one of the most haunted houses in the world. It's located in New South Wales and its past is tragic. The property was built in 1885 by William Crawley, and it's his family and staff that are believed to haunt the building. It all began when one of the Crawleys' young daughters was thrown to her death down the stairs by her nanny, who later claimed that she was pushed by an unknown force. Another story is that the Crawleys' housekeeper kept her mentally ill son tied up in an outhouse for more than 30 years, and he was found curled up next to the body of his dead mother. After being sent to a mental institution, he died shortly after and is said to haunt the building. Outside the house, the figure of a young boy is often seen loitering near the coach house. This was the place of the sad death of a stable hand called Morris, who used to sleep in the stables. One morning, he was taken ill and was too sick to get up for work. His boss did not believe him and set fire to his bedding. Morris was too weak to escape and burned to death. In 1910, Christopher Crawley died in the house, and his death was caused by a gangrenous abscess on his neck. After Christopher died, his wife Elizabeth spent the rest of her life mourning until her death in the house 23 years later. Over this period, she had become deeply religious and had converted a small room upstairs into a chapel. This is where her apparition has been seen on many occasions, dressed in black and carrying a large silver cross. The remaining Crawley family continued to live in the house until 1948. In 1961, the caretaker of the now abandoned house was shot dead on the property by a local man who was inspired by Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, and she too is said to haunt the building. The present owner, Mrs. Olive Ryan, purchased the abandoned Victorian house with her late husband in 1963, and Mrs. Ryan claims that one of their first odd experiences with the home was one night when the entire house was lit up despite there not being a power supply. This is when the Ryans realised that there was something different about this place. Lawrence Ryan, their son, grew up in the mansion, and after he married his wife Sophia, she moved into the mansion. Soon after moving in, Sophia realised that she had a deep connection with the house, and believes that she lived there in a past life as a maid. Over the years, the family have collected a series of photographs that appear to show apparitions, and claim they have always felt as if someone is watching them. Mrs. Ryan said she regularly feels a hand on her shoulder, and hears her name called, as well as footsteps on the balcony when no one is there. Today, Monte Cristo is visited by hundreds of ghost hunters, hoping to catch a glimpse of the spirits, and it's one of the most popular ghost haunts in Australia. Devil's Pool. Devil's Pool is located near Babinda, a small town in northern Queensland, in an area of outstanding natural beauty. From the top of Mount Bartlefrere, 3 streams of water can be seen rushing down, and as they all converge at the bottom amongst a group of huge boulders, they create a serene but deadly water pool. The inviting crystal water, surrounded by the striking scenery, entices visitors from all around the world. However, do not be fooled by the pool's beauty, as this place has a dark reputation, and for centuries has been feared by the Aborigine population after a tragic accident many years ago. A young woman called Ulana, from the Udinji tribe, married a much respected but much older tribesman named Warunu. Shortly after they married, Ulana met a younger man and ran off into the wilderness with him. When her husband found out, he sent a search party to track his wife down and end her adulterous affair, and it was at the boulders that the pair were finally caught. Ulana could not face life without her lover and threw herself into the swirling water, where she drowned. However, it's believed that her spirit never left the area. For many years, a large number of young men have mysteriously met their end in Devil's Pool, adding credibility to the legend that she targets males. Since 1959, at least 17 people have died in the pool in unexplained circumstances. There have been many visitors who report hearing a disembodied woman's voice calling out, as well as claims of ghostly eyes and faces peering out from beneath the water. Witnesses to the deaths have also noted that victims appear to be yanked underneath the water, despite it appearing relatively calm, as if an invisible hand has grabbed them, and often bodies aren't recovered for several days due to the cold water and depth of the pool. Eerily, a plaque is erected near the site of one victim, simply saying, "He came for a visit and stayed forever." The danger has been recognised by authorities, and most of the area is now closed off and has several warning signs. Of course, there are other explanations for the tragedies, such as the speed that the water runs, lack of buoyancy, and the untamed currents that potentially pull victims under the water. However, this doesn't explain the deaths that have occurred that haven't involved a swimming accident, when people have simply fallen in the water for seemingly no apparent reason. Melbourne's Princess Theatre. The Princess Theatre in Melbourne opened in 1854 and is famous for its international music productions. However, for many years, it's just as well known for its resident ghost, The spirit of the actor, Frederick Federici, has been haunting the place since his untimely death in 1888. Frederick's real name was Baker, but he performed under his stage name Federici. He was an Italian-born British opera singer and performed in various operas around the world. In 1888, he landed a role at the Princess Theatre. On the opening night, everything was going well, until at the end of the play, he sang his last note before he and another actor descended through a trapdoor in the stage. At the exact moment he went through the trapdoor, the audience noticed he seemed to slump slightly. Federici had suffered a fatal heart attack at the age of just 37. Although the rest of the cast hadn't realised and all went back on stage for the curtain call, unaware that Federici was lying dead beneath the stage. After discovering his body, many of the actors and audience were shocked, as they were convinced he was on stage taking his bow with the rest of the cast. Since this day, Federici's spirit has supposedly remained in the building, and has been encountered many times by both staff and audiences, who claim to see his ghostly apparition in evening dress wandering around the theatre. Although Federici is not an evil presence, quite the opposite. Theatre staff are so fond of him, they have a tradition of saving him a third-row seat in the dress circle of every opening night performance. Studley Park House in New South Wales. Studley Park House overlooks Camden Golf Course and has long been considered as one of Camden's most haunted houses. The original owner of the house was William Payne, who built the mansion in 1889 for his wife, but after running out of money, he sold it to the architect who designed it. Over the years, it has changed hands several times and had several uses, such as a grammar school, an army training school in World War II, as well as a private residence. Tragedy struck in 1909 when 14-year-old student Ray Blackstone, who was boarding at the then grammar school, decided to go for a swim with his fellow students in a nearby dam, despite warnings that it was dangerous. While trying to swim to the other side, Blackstone got into difficulty, and despite the other boys' efforts to save him, he drowned. His lifeless body was brought ashore by students, and it's said to have been stored in the cold, dark cellar of Studley Park House, awaiting burial. This tragedy was followed in 1939 by the death of the son of the then owner, Arthur Gregory. Gregory had bought the house as a family residence and had made changes to the place, including building a golf course and converting the students' dining area into a theatre. Sadly, it was here where his 13-year-old son Noel died of appendicitis. It's believed the spirits of the two boys still haunt the house, and the sound of them playing and crying has been regularly heard. Others have reported unexplained lights and a mysterious lady standing in a window. In 2001, the psychological reality game show Scream Test was filmed in the house. The 4 contestants spent time alone in various parts of the building, but for one of the contestants it was too much. She reported hearing voices and was so scared that she refused to continue with the challenge. The site is now a magnet for ghost hunters and even has a guided ghost tour. I'd be interested if any of you have visited the house, and whether or not you had any strange experiences there. So that's 5 of the most haunted locations in Australia. I hope you've enjoyed this special 4-part series, and again, don't forget to pick up your limited edition Top 5's black hoodie. It looks so creepy and awesome, and is so comfortable to wear. Thanks for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next video.